I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, we've only been here an hour. And the Japanese unleashed their assault on us on the beach. And up ahead, I see this hell of an explosion. And then I see another one and another one there. Now we're getting fire from both sides. And we look up and here's this torpedo bomber coming in, stitching the sand with machine gun bullets in front of us. I'm laying down on the sand firing. The Japanese start running out on fire. And that was our first experience in combat.
February 1945. Future race car driver Chuck Tatum is an untested 18-year-old PFC heading into the bloodiest battle in Marine Corps history.
We were aboard the USS Hansford. The colonel came on and said that we were going to go to a place closer to the mainland of Japan than any battle so far, and we're going to a place called Iwo Jima. Now the B-29's taking off from Saipan, Guam, or Tinian to go to Tokyo. They couldn't get past Iwo Jima without having the fighter plane stationed there and come up and attack them. It was 600 miles from Tokyo, so that they were dumping those B-29s in the ocean so fast. They were losing 20 to 25% of them per raid. So this is going to wreck the whole thing. But if you have Iwo Jima, this unsinkable aircraft carrier, 600 miles away, if you own that, you can build an airstrip you can land a B-29 on. That made Iwo Jima the most valuable real estate in the whole world at that particular time. This 8 square miles of volcanic ash and sand or whatever it was. This became very important to both sides.
Monday, the 19th. Hundreds of ships and thousands of men close in on the beaches.
We were in the first assault wave. We came in those amphibious tractors from an LST. I was beyond being scared to go in there, but you got to go do what you got to do. They trained you to do this, and there's no way you can back out. How are you going to tell the guys you're not going to go? The Japanese had this supposed plan. They had all these drums of gasoline moored in the water. And when we got to certain places, they would explode this on the Amtraks coming in. And as a consequence of that, we were issued a white protective screen, a cream that you put on your face, kind of like Super Duty sun lotion. That's the way I would describe it now. And it was perfectly white. It was like white clown makeup. Pretty soon all your buddies looked like Halloween ghouls. I was a machine gunner, and on board the Amtraks they had 250 caliber machine guns, and my gunner and I, my assistant gunner Steve Evans and I were coming in, and we're setting up high, and we can see, and everybody else is hunkered down in the tank. As we're circling around and everything, I had to describe to Wendell, the sergeant, what was going on. What's going on up there, Tatum? He'd holler. I'd say, well, they're blowing hell out of this place. You can't even see the island anymore. And I realized at that time I was probably witnessing one of the greatest bombardments of World War II. They had all these battleships and all these aircraft bombing it, and it obscured the island from the smoke and debris and the haze and everything that was created by the bombardment. We had really expected to be shelled coming in, why wouldn't you be? They did it everywhere else, but there was no appreciable shell fire directed at the Amtraks coming in. And as we get closer, Steve and I are manning these 50 calibers, and I don't see anything to shoot at, but I get vent my frustrations or something. Both he and I fire them at the beach, And Wendell says, "What are you firing at?" And I said, "Well, nothing." He said, "Well, quit wasting ammo." In our case, we would land on Red Beach 2, advance to the airstrip, and help cut the island, sever the island in two. Once we severed the island in two, we would turn oblique to the right and go up the side of the island going north. And we had it down pat. We knew exactly what we were supposed to do, except when we got to the beach, it all became fouled up. And we're coming in, and the area we were coming in had some outcroppings of rocks called the Fatsu or something other rocks. And instead of being able to go straight in and stay in our formation, we had to swing out around this coral reef. Some people went one way and we went the other. When we got reorganized later on, we can't find anybody from our company. And we look up and here's this torpedo bomber coming in, and it's, you know, the pilot's dead, and it was stitched in the sand with machine gun bullets in front of us. We just got there and they're doing this. And then the plane crashed into an Amtrak out on the water that was returning. And so our first danger on the beach was from falling airplane parts coming down. They exploded and went all over everything. But then we decided we better start going inland like we were told. So we start trying to climb these terraces. We talk about sand, but they weren't. They were volcanic crystals. And they didn't adhere to each other. They didn't compact or anything like that. And it was like digging in a wheat bin, you know. You dug in it, it would just fill back up. And I was in good shape. I probably weighed 180 pounds. But I figured probably I had maybe 60 pounds of gear. And I'm trying to climb these terraces. And it was go a little ways to slide back, go a little, and it was totally exhausting. And then the sand got in your mouth, and there you became, and of course you're scared, you got cotton mouth anyway. And Steve and I are ahead of everybody else. We don't know where anybody else is, except we're trying to do what they told us. And at Iwo Jima, everybody, 22,000 people, however many soldiers they had, lived subterranean. There was no buildings above ground. There was no trees. They cut everything down. They stripped the land, and they set up all these predetermined fields of fire. And of course, the Japanese didn't open fire on the first wave. They want 3 or 4 of them. They want the beach compacted with people before they were going to expose their plan. The Japanese unleashed their assault on us on the beach. Now everybody else, including myself, was attempting to dig the China with their hands. And I look back and here's a guy standing up, walking on the beach. And I'm thinking, Jesus, why didn't that? And I realize it's Basilone, Sergeant John Basilone. He was a Medal of Honor recipient from Guadalcanal. Here's a walking, living legend of the Marine Corps.
And we're very proud to have you in New York City. Can you tell us something about how you happened to get this medal? You must have mowed them down.
Yes, sir. I was in a good outfit with good men. I just happened to be there, and anyone would have done the same in my place.
Spoken just like a Marine.
People wondered why, after you won the Medal of Honor, why would you go back into combat? Well, they forgot that he was a professional soldier. This is what he did. This wasn't some wartime interlude on his part. And if you're going to be a professional soldier, you have to go where the fighting is. They wanted him to stay in Washington. They gave him every opportunity. But he expressed the thought to other people that he couldn't hang around Washington when there was guys in the field yet. And when I look back at the beach, there was the only Marine enlisted man I saw standing up. And the people who stopped never even got to the terrace. He's kicking them, saying, "Get up, what are you going to die on the goddamn beach? You know, get going." Then the bombardment, then the shelling started. And up ahead there, I see this black sand explode. And I thought, boy, that was a hell of an explosion, you know. And then I see another one and another one there. And by this time, Basilone and his people have moved up to where Steve and I are. He said, you know, gave me the signal. There's a signal that, you know, means go in action on my point. And I can't see anything. I don't know what's happening. But we're trying to get the machine gun ready. It's got sand in it. I have to clean the machine gun on the beach during the explosions and everything. And then I can see the wind blew the smoke away from this thing. I can see the muzzle of a field piece shooting down the beach into the 4th Marines. And Basilone gave me the signal, and I started firing at it. And of course, they slammed the steel doors closed. Somewhere, Basilone found a demolition man. Whenever the guy got to the right place, Basilone whacked me on the head, on the helmet, to cease fire. So I quit. And this guy runs with this 10-pound charge of composition C2, and he throws it at the aperture of this field. Of course, 10 pounds of C2 could open up anything. So it blew the doors off of this blockhouse. And then Basilone gives me the signal to commence firing again. And he's kneeling down beside me, And then he sends a guy up with a flamethrower. The demolition guy with a flamethrower goes in, gives a couple of squirts of that deadly napalm into the aperture of the field piece. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, I've only been here an hour, and this is really exciting, dangerous. And then Basilone stood up a straddle of my body. I'm laying down on the sand firing. And he reaches down and he unhooks what's called the pintle hook, which releases the gun from the tripod. And he leaned over and screamed in my ear, "Get the belt!" And he grabbed the machine gun. He starts running up this area leading to this where the gun housing was. And as we get to the top of this revetment, or this area, the Japanese start running out of the back. And they've got this napalm all over them, on fire. And he takes a machine gun. As they run out, he shoots them all. And they just fall dead. And I used to think it was kind of like a mercy killing, because I figured those guys were dead already. They were dead. They just hadn't fallen over yet or anything. And that was our first experience in combat. And he gave there's a signal, "Follow me." He started leading us across the island. We went up onto the first airstrip at the very end of it, where the planes turned around, and we got into a 16-inch shell hole, all of us. And then the Navy started shelling us. That we got ahead of the rolling barrage. We're getting fire from the mortars at one end of the island. They're trying to shoot at us from Suribachi, and now the Navy's trying to do us in. And Basilone said, "I'll go get more people." And he left us there, and he told us to stay there, come hell or high water. And we look across the area that we just came across. I can see it's Basilone. We can see all of a sudden a mortar shell lit among them. And killed Basilone and 5 other C Company Marines. So he was dead within the first hour and a half. America's hero. For his actions there that day in eliminating this huge blockhouse on the beach at Iwo Jima, he would receive posthumously the Navy Cross. I thought, boy, nobody, don't count on anything. Anyone's game here. You could be going in a flash. And we spent the entire first day in this shell hole up in the middle of the airstrip. And to tell you the truth, we didn't probably expect to make it through the day where we were at, under constant shelling by all these people, the Japanese and the Americans. But around 4:30, we could see the Marines coming. And then in the lead was Wendell, my sergeant. And he was glad to find us. And later on, about an hour later, he came over to me and he said, "Tatum, right now you're the ranking PFC in the platoon." So that's how I got to be a squad leader on my first day at Iwo Jima. Because from my squad of 7 men that we landed with, 2 of them got killed on the beach. Corporal Whaley got killed, and Thompson got killed. So the squad of 7 that we landed with is 5. It was a real blood promotion, so to speak.
Chuck Tatum has survived his first 8 hours on Iwo Jima. He's not so sure about the next 8.
The first day, you have to remember, at the night of the first day, we occupied less than 5% of that island. We had a strip from one beach across to the other, maybe 5 football fields, 500 yards. It's a very thin strip. When you're so cranked up on adrenaline, You know, well, the whole war's still going on at night. You know, they didn't call it off because it got dark. The Navy shooting these star shells illuminated the whole place. And then the first night to see that flickering of those star shells and this white face really gave it a ghoulish look to everybody. And when we quit, the Japanese shot them, thinking we were getting ready to attack. We expected a bonsai charge. In fact, we got set up for it, you know, because we knew they'd done this all the times before, and there'd be a bonsai charge that night. There wasn't one. They didn't do that. They changed their tactics. I was really relieved to wake up the next morning and find I was still alive.
Iwo Jima, Day 2. The Marines still have an entire island to take.
You had to just gather up your courage and go, because there's no way you're going to let these guys down. There's no way you're going to flake out on them or not go. When they say saddle up, you got ready to go. We were always glad to see the artillery open up. Although in all honesty, it never did anything to the emplacements. When you consider their sanctuary is 8 foot of concrete with reinforcing bar and everything like that. See, the only way that we defeated the Japanese at Iwo Jima was with Composition C2 and the flamethrower. The Japanese soldier was a lot different than the Marines. We were told in the Marine Corps that if they got killed fighting for the Emperor, they had their ticket punched straight through to the Japanese version of heaven, wherever that was. And so you're dealing with people who have a religious and cultural zeal to defend their country and to die for it. Now, the Marines wanted to live and fight for their country, and they were prepared to die for it, to defend it and whatever. And of course, a lot of them did, 21,000 of them.
On the 4th day of fighting, the Marines win the victory that makes all the papers back home.
Thank God they took Suribachi, that ugly rock up there. I recall it clearly. Steve and I were digging in an emplacement under a mortar attack, severe mortar attack, using phosphorus shells. And I'm digging away, and he's kicking me on the foot. Tatum, he says, look at this. I said, well, what the hell do you want? I turned around and he said, look, there's the flag. And here it was, the flag on top of Suribachi. And of course, the ships, there was a lot of, blowing of whistles and things like that. And I didn't applaud because I was still trying to stay alive. It meant immediately to me that we wouldn't be shot at from both sides. This strip of land we were in, they now had removed the menace from one side of it. But at this time, we still don't have much of the island. I'd say less than 30%, if that much. And what we didn't know at the time was that the real battle had just begun. For you to make it, other people have to make it. So you have to be concerned with everybody.
Thousands don't make it, or don't make it through unscathed. Medics or hospital corpsmen rush into combat zones to help the wounded. But English-speaking Japanese soldiers will yell corpsmen, who lure the unarmed men into the field to kill them. So the Marines come up with a new emergency call. Tallulah, from Broadway actress Tallulah Bankhead.
So they used her name to call for a corpsman, because the Japanese couldn't pronounce the L's very well, apparently. And I called for the corpsman. Tallulah, he came over there to where this guy is. And I said, Jesus, look. And he's looking at him, and he starts crying. And I said, what's wrong? He said, I can't fix anybody else. I can't look at any more blood. He said, I'm through with this. I'm never going to do this again. He said, and I tried to comfort him, and he was crying, sobbing. And somebody hollered out, Tallulah. And he hears it. He jumps up and grabs his bag and runs to the next thing. the losses that we suffered in B Company were so horrendous that it was just, I met some guys and I said, hey, what outfit's this? They said B Company 27. I never recognized any of them. They were all replacements or come from other units to come up there. I didn't dislike them or anything, but they came up as ammo carriers, and I didn't want to know anything about their girlfriend. I didn't want to see their mother or pictures of anybody. I didn't want any more friends. I didn't want to lose them like you lost other people.
10 days into the battle, Tatum's 17-year-old friend Steve Evanston is shot by Japanese soldiers firing from a cave. Shooting his machine gun from the hip, Tatum wipes out everyone in the cave. He gets a Bronze Star for that. Steve dies of his wounds, and his parents receive a Purple Heart.
I was probably fighting to stay alive, basically. My biggest concern was that I'd run out of luck, run out of chances. How many days can you stay there and not get killed? All these other guys got killed, and here you're still here. And you could have kind of a survivor guilt, after a while. I was only there 2 weeks. I had a case of combat fatigue, I guess, was the only way to describe it. And all of a sudden I realized I'm sitting on a rock out in the middle of this flat area. And I don't know where everybody went. And then I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, what's going on here? And then I thought, well, you better go find somebody. If you stay here, they'll think you deserted and the Marines will shoot you. And that's when I ran into guys. I asked them where B Company went, and they said it went over that way. And through these rocks, these crevices, comes Sergeant Wendell. And he came and got me, and he took me back to where the platoon was. And he said, are you all right? And I said, oh yeah, I'm all right now. But about an hour later, he came over and he got me and stood me up, and he said, you're out of here. I said, what do you mean I'm out of here? He said, you're out of here. Get your ass to the back. Go get some help. Probably saw I had a 1,000-yard stare or something, I don't know. And Wendell told me that I met Wendell many years later, 50 years, 40 years later. And he said that he knew that having lost Steve and Whaley and on, all these guys had probably ganged up on my emotions.
After 2 brutal weeks of fighting, Chuck Tatum is evacuated from the island. He's one of some 1,500 men who suffer combat fatigue during the 36-day battle for Iwo Jima.
And they take us to a ship. It was really like a little luxury liner. And they declared the island secure, I think, 15 days before the Japanese heard about it. They didn't tell them that we had won already. And some of the most hellacious fighting happened after that. Because we're aboard this ship, and the Japanese decide to shell this ship from the island. There's ambulatory Marines, and there's ones, they're so full, they're laying on stretchers all over the forward deck. And here comes all this debris. I thought the war would never end. I knew they were out to get me. But nobody got hurt. Miracle.
Private Chuck Tatum lives to a ripe old age, but his 2 weeks on Iwo Jima will stay with him forever.
But just being off of there, you start to recover immediately. Your outlook improves and everything changes with that. And after the war, the statistics on it, of course, was that the capture of Iwo Jima, even though it cost 6,800 American lives, that there was 25,000 airmen saved, not counting the B-29s, by the conquest of Iwo Jima. I was proud to have been a Marine. I'm proud to have survived Iwo Jima. I'm proud to be a messenger or courier or relater of tales or stories regarding it. To this day, if they play the Star Spangled Banner, I can see that flag. I can see that flag on Suribachi. I think it represents America. It's our freedom. To this day, I can't listen to that without seeing that in my mind's eye.